My name is Cameron Hayes. I am 35 years old, and right now I'm sitting in my car outside my own apartment building in Charlotte, North Carolina, with the engine off and my hands locked around the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ache. I have been parked here long enough for the sun to slide down behind the buildings, long enough for the dashboard clock to roll past numbers I did not even notice, and I still cannot make myself get out. My girlfriend is inside. Ex-girlfriend. Whatever word fits, somebody who looked at the last living piece of my daughter that I had left and decided it was something that needed to go. My daughter's name was Maya. She died 2 years ago from leukemia when she was 7 years old. Saying that in one clean sentence feels like lying, like it should take longer to say something that wrecked my entire life. Her mother, Adriana, and I split when Maya was 3. It was not dramatic, just two young people who could not make it work, but we stayed friends. We worked out a schedule, we talked through school choices, we sat together at little dance recitals and small birthday parties. When Maya got sick, all of that became background noise. We were both in that children's wing at St. Mary's Medical Center every single day, trading off sleep on a plastic recliner and eating stale vending machine chips, holding Maya's hands through every test and needle and beeping machine. The day she died, Adriana sat on one side of the bed and I sat on the other. Maya's fingers were smaller than they had any right to be, limp but still warm in my hand. I watched her chest rise and fall slower and slower, that awful hiss and click of the oxygen machine, and I remember thinking it sounded like the hospital itself was breathing for her. When the monitors flatlined, Adriana started sobbing so hard she fell forward onto the bed. I did not make a sound at first. I just stared at my daughter's face, waiting for some last breath, some twitch, anything. The nurse reached to turn off the monitor, and I wanted to grab her hand and stop her. As long as there was noise, it felt like maybe this was still fixable. After the funeral, after the food, after the people who barely knew us stopped dropping by with covered dishes and sad eyes, the world just kept going. People went back to work. Traffic still backed up every morning on I-77. The mail kept showing up. I went back to my job in project management at a tech company a few weeks later because I did not know what else to do. I went through the motions, answered emails, sat in meetings where people argued about timelines like deadlines meant anything when I had watched my child run out of time completely. At night, I would go home to my quiet condo, walk past Maya's empty room where her posters still hung, and sit on the couch staring at nothing until it was late enough to pass out. I had one voice recording of her on my phone. Just 38 seconds. It was from about a month before she got really bad, when I was in Chicago for a work conference. I called her before bed, and she asked if she could send me something special so I would not forget to say goodnight back. She talked Adriana into letting her use the phone to record it. In the recording she said, "Good night, Daddy. I love you. I miss you. Sleep tight. Do not let the bed bugs bite." And then she giggled that high, bright laugh that always made her eyes scrunch nearly shut. She insisted on saying it twice, because the first time she messed up bed bugs and started laughing halfway through. I saved a second try, but sometimes in my head I could still hear the fumbled first one. After Maya died, I put that recording into a separate album on my phone, set it so it would not show up in random slideshows or shuffle. I never played it around anyone else, not even Adriana. It felt sacred in a way I cannot really explain. On bad days, when grief sat on my chest like a weight, and my hands shook for no reason, I would put in headphones, sit on the edge of my bed or in the car in the parking lot at work, and play those 38 seconds. Once a week, sometimes more. Just enough to hear her voice say she loved me, that she missed me, to hear that little burst of laughter at the end. It made my chest ache and my throat burn, but it was the one thing that could cut through the numbness. A few months after the funeral, my grief counselor, Dr. Owens, suggested that one day, when I felt ready, I might think about dating again. I laughed in his office and said, "Who would sign up for this?" He just looked at me over his glasses and said grief did not mean my life was over. That loving Maya did not mean I would never be allowed to have anything else. I did not believe him, but I filed it away. For almost a year, I did nothing but work, see family, talk to Adriana about legal paperwork, and visit Maya's grave or the park she liked. I met Lauren at a coffee shop near my office. I was there on a rainy Thursday, trying to force myself to review some project notes while my mind kept drifting back to a dream I had about Maya. I spilled coffee on my shirt, swore under my breath, and she laughed softly from the next table. She was tall, with long braids pulled into a bun and a navy blazer that made her look like she always had somewhere important to be. She offered me a napkin and said, "You look like this day has personally targeted you." I smiled for the first time in what felt like weeks. We started talking, first about the weather and work, then about how much she hated open-plan offices. The conversation felt easy in a way that surprised me. We swapped numbers. A few days later, we had dinner at a small restaurant in uptown Charlotte. At first, I did not mention Maya. I had gotten used to avoiding the topic around new people. It felt like a grenade I kept in my pocket. But Lauren asked about kids when I mentioned that I took a day off every month for something personal, and I did not want to lie. I told her that I had a daughter, that she had died the year before. I watched her face carefully, ready for flinching or pity. Instead, she went quiet for a second, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She said, "I'm so sorry, Cameron. That is the worst thing I can imagine. Thank you for trusting me enough to tell me." In those early months, she said all the right things. She told me grief did not have a timeline. She said she understood that Maya would always be part of my life. She said she knew she would never replace her and did not want to. When she came over to my condo for the first time, she walked past the framed photos of Maya on the hallway wall, paused, and asked about each one. How old was she here? What was she laughing at in this one? I told her stories about Maya's obsession with ducks, how she hated peas but loved broccoli, how she once tried to hide a stray cat in her closet. Lauren listened, smiling, asking little questions, and I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I could have both, the love I had for my daughter and something new with someone who respected that. About 6 months in, the tone shifted almost so slowly I did not notice it at first. We were watching a movie on my couch one evening when a commercial came on for a children's hospital. The music, the images, the 2 bright rooms, it all hit me in the chest. I grabbed the remote and muted it, staring at the blank corner of the screen. Lauren glanced at me and said, "You still get triggered by that stuff, huh?" Her voice was not unkind, just tired. I nodded, feeling foolish. She sighed and said, "I get it, but you mention Maya a lot. Sometimes it feels like she's always here with us." I said, "She's always with me. That is just the reality." Lauren smiled thinly and said, "I know. I do not want you stuck in the past forever. It started small. Maybe we could put away some of the photos from the hallway. Just the ones where she looks sick. Do you think going to the cemetery every month might be keeping you from moving forward?" When you talk about her every day, it is hard for me not to feel like I am competing with a memory. The first time she said that last one, I flinched. Competing with a memory. Maya was not a memory. She was my child. But I was lonely, and Lauren was the first person who had made me feel even a little bit normal again. Dr. Owens had mentioned that sometimes people could get stuck in grief. A part of me wondered if Lauren was right, if I was clinging too tightly. So I compromised. I agreed to move a few photos from the hallway into my bedroom. I did not talk about Maya as much around Lauren, even when something reminded me of her so sharply it hurt. About 4 months ago, Lauren moved into my condo. We had been talking about it for a while. She said she was tired of her roommate situation, that her lease was ending, that it made sense for us to take the next step. I own my condo outright. I bought in my late 20s after saving for years. We agreed she would move in, contribute to the utilities and groceries, and then start paying a small amount toward the mortgage once she paid off some credit card debt. "Just give me a few months to catch up," she said, curling into my side on the couch. I said yes because it felt like the natural next step, and because a small part of me still believed that building something new might ease the constant ache in my chest. The few months of catching up turned into 4 very fast. Every time I brought up money, there was some new emergency. Her car needed a major repair. She had unexpected dental work. A friend's rent had gone up suddenly, and she wanted to help. I covered the bills without making a scene, but it gnawed at me in the background. Every time I walked past Maya's room and saw the baby blanket folded at the end of the bed, the stuffed rabbit resting against the pillow, I felt like the balance of my life was tilting. I was paying for everything, trying to keep my head above water emotionally and financially, while Lauren began complaining more often about how heavy the apartment felt. One morning about 2 weeks ago, I woke up early for work. Normally Lauren slept late, staying in bed scrolling on her phone until almost noon on her days off. But that day, the bed beside me was cold. I padded out into the living room, still half asleep, and saw her sitting on the couch with my phone in her hands. Her own phone lay face down on the coffee table right next to her. I frowned and said, "What are you doing?" She jumped like I had caught her doing something illegal. She forced a laugh and said, "Nothing. I was just checking the weather on your phone." Mine died. I glanced at her phone. It was plugged into the charger, screen lighting up with a notification. Weird. But I was running late, so I just said, "Okay," and took my phone back when she held it out with a too bright smile. That whole day at work was a mess. My boss, Mr. Thompson, was on my back about a project that was falling behind schedule because one of our vendors dropped the ball. Emails kept stacking up. My team was frazzled. A client called to just touch base and ended up complaining for 30 minutes. By the time I drove home in the dark, my head throbbed, and all I wanted was silence. Maybe a shower. Maybe to sit on the couch and stare at a wall. Maybe, if I had enough strength, to listen to Maya's recording for the first time in a few weeks and let myself cry without feeling like I had to hide it. I went straight to my bedroom, dropped my bag on the chair by the window, and grabbed my phone. I opened my Photos app, tapped the folder where I kept the recording saved, expecting to hear Maya's voice the way I had so many times before. The folder was there, but the little thumbnail was wrong. I tapped it. Empty. Just a gray screen and the words "no items." It took my brain a second to catch up. I backed out and searched her name. Nothing. I checked the voice memo app, even though I knew I had never stored it there. Nothing. I went to recently deleted. Empty. My hand started shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I walked out into the living room, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Lauren was stretched out on the couch, scrolling through her own phone, the television murmuring some reality show in the background. I swallowed hard and said, "Did you use my phone today?" She did not even look up. "No." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Are you sure?" She glanced over at me then, eyebrows raised. "What?" I said. "The recording of Maya. The one I keep in my photos. It is gone." There was a tiny pause. Then she said, "Oh, yeah, I deleted that." She said it like she was telling me she had thrown out old takeout containers. Casual. Dismissive. My brain stalled. "You what?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears. She sighed and sat up, rolling her eyes. "I deleted it, Cameron. You need to move on. You listen to that constantly. It is not healthy. I'm trying to help you." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood there holding my phone like it had turned into a live grenade. She kept going, words coming faster now, like she had practiced them. I have been so patient, really patient, but it has been 2 years. You cannot live in the past forever. We are supposed to be building a future together, and you are obsessed with a recording of a dead. "Get out," I said. The words came out flat, without any heat, like my body had gone on autopilot. She blinked. "What?" I took a breath, and everything in me settled into a cold, clear line. "Get out of my apartment." She stared at me like I was the one who had lost my mind. "You are serious? Over this?" She held her hands out toward me, as if I was the unreasonable one. "Cameron, there are therapists, support groups. You do not need some recording to heal. It is not normal to cling to it like this. I'm trying to help you, and you are being insane." My thumb hovered over the keypad on my phone as I pulled up the dialer. "Who are you calling?" Lauren demanded. "The police," I said, "to report a trespasser." Her eyes went wide. For a second, I saw something like fear cut through the outrage on her face. She grabbed her purse from the hook by the door. "You are unbelievable," she snapped. "After everything I have done for you." I stared at her. "You deleted the only recording I had of my daughter's voice. You did that on purpose." She opened her mouth like she was going to argue, then snapped it shut. She yanked the door open and slammed it so hard the frame rattled. A few seconds later, there was a knock on my door. I thought for one absurd second that Lauren had come back to apologize. Instead, when I opened it, my neighbor from across the hall, Mrs. Loretta Holloway, stood there in her slippers and a floral robe. She is in her 70s, and I carry her groceries upstairs on weekends sometimes. "Everything all right, baby?" she asked, peering past me as if she expected to see a fist fight. I swallowed, the pressure in my throat finally threatening to break. "I am fine, Mrs. Holloway," I managed. "Just an argument." She patted my arm and said, "You call me if you need anything." Then she shuffled back to her door. After she left, I sat on the couch in the quiet apartment. The television still showed a paused frame from the reality show Lauren had been watching. My phone rested like a stone in my hand. I do not know how long I sat there, staring at nothing. Time blurred. Eventually, a thought cut through the fog. The cloud backup. I had set my phone to sync automatically to an online storage account every week. I had done it years ago after losing some vacation photos in a phone update. My hands shook as I opened the app and scrolled through folders, my eyes searching for the familiar thumbnail of Maya's face. It was there, the familiar picture of her with chocolate smeared on her mouth as she grinned up at the camera, the little blue play icon in the corner. I tapped it with a thumb that barely felt connected to my body. The sound of her voice filled my headphones, soft and a little scratchy. "Good night, Daddy. I love you. I miss you. Sleep tight. Do not let the bedbugs bite." Then the giggle, bright and perfect and so heartbreakingly alive that I doubled over on the couch. I downloaded the file back onto my phone, then onto my laptop, then onto an external drive. I saved it to 3 different cloud services. Then I sat there and listened to it over and over, crying harder than I had since the funeral. The next morning, my phone rang while I was making coffee. The number was Lauren's best friend, Tiffany. We had met a few times at dinners and game nights. She always looked at me like she felt a little sorry for me, but did not want to say it out loud. I almost let it go to voicemail. Curiosity won. I answered. "Hello." There was no greeting on her end. She came in hot. "What the hell is wrong with you, Cameron?" she demanded. "Excuse me," I said, thrown. "Lauren is devastated," Tiffany said. "She told me you threw her out in the middle of the night because she tried to help you. Are you serious right now?" I leaned against the counter, staring at the steam rising from the coffee maker. "She deleted the only recording I have of my daughter's voice," I said quietly. There was a pause. Then Tiffany said, "Well, she told me it was an accident, that she was trying to clean up your phone and hit the wrong file. She told me to my face she did it on purpose because I needed to move on," I said. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Tiffany huffed. "She has been dealing with your depression for over a year. She has been nothing but supportive in you." I cut her off. "She has been living rent-free in my apartment for 4 months, criticizing me for keeping photos of my dead child. If she is devastated, she can stay devastated somewhere else." I hung up before she could respond. The rest of that day slid by in a haze of work and angry thoughts. That evening, when I got home, I noticed fresh scratches around the lock on my front door. Tiny gouges in the metal that had definitely not been there the day before. My stomach dropped. I checked the door carefully. It was still locked. The frame was intact. I stepped inside, flipped on the lights, and did a slow lap around the condo. Nothing looked disturbed. Still, those scratches felt like a threat. I called the property manager for the building, a man named David Jackson that I know well because I serve on the condo board. Technically, I help manage the building myself, but David handles day-to-day security and maintenance. When I showed him the lock, he frowned and said, "Looks like somebody tried to jimmy it, but they gave up." He changed the locks right away and installed a sturdier deadbolt. I also decided, for the first time, to get a Ring camera for my front door. David helped me mount it and connect it to my phone. Watching the test feed of my own hallway felt strange, like I had put a small, unblinking eye on my own life. That night, as I sat on the couch watching the local news without really hearing it, my phone chimed with a notification from the Ring app. "Motion detected at your front door." My heart jumped into my throat. I pulled up the live feed. Lauren stood in the hallway, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She knocked on the door. "Cameron," she called. She knocked again, harder. "I know you are home. Open up. This is ridiculous. We need to talk." I watched her on my phone while sitting 10 feet away on the other side of the door. After a minute, I stood and walked over. I opened the door but left the new deadbolt on the screen door engaged, so there was a barrier between us. Lauren's eyes swept over me, then flicked to the Ring camera. Her lips tightened. "Did you try to break in earlier?" I asked, nodding toward the lock. She lifted her chin. "I was getting my things. You changed the locks without telling me. You cannot just lock me out. I live here." I shook my head. "No, you do not. You have been staying here. There is a difference." Her face flushed. "I've been here 4 months. That makes me a tenant. You have to give me 30 days notice." "You never paid rent," I said. "You're not on the lease. You're not on the mortgage. You are a guest who stayed too long." Her eyes flashed. You were garbage. You know that? I spent a whole year dealing with your moping and crying and staring at pictures of your dead girl. And this is how you repay me. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I did not trust myself to answer. I just closed the door, locked both locks, and walked away. She pounded on the door for nearly 10 minutes before finally leaving, shouting a couple of insults that barely registered through the wood. A few days later, I got a text from a number I did not recognize. The message read, "My daughter told me what you did. Shame on you. She was trying to help you heal, and you attacked her." I stared at it for a second before realizing it had to be Lauren's mother, Brenda. I typed back, "She deleted the only recording I have of my daughter's voice on purpose after living in my apartment rent-free for 4 months. You want to discuss how that was helping? I am all ears." Nothing came back for nearly an hour. Then a notification from another contact popped up. "Coming to get my stuff tomorrow afternoon. You better let me in." Lauren texted from her own number. My reply was immediate. "Your stuff will be boxed outside my door tomorrow afternoon. You are not coming inside. If you try, I am calling the police." She fired back, "You cannot do that. What if someone steals it?" I answered, "Not my problem. You have an hour to get it. After that, it is getting donated." "That is illegal," she wrote. "No, it is not," I said. "You do not live here. You are not on any paperwork. I'm being nice by boxing it instead of throwing it in trash bags." She did not respond after that. That evening, I started boxing up her things. There actually was not much. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, a scattered collection of books, makeup spread across my bathroom counter. She had never really unpacked fully, now that I thought about it. It was like she had always been half-packed, ready to go. As I moved around the condo, gathering her belongings, I kept finding evidence of how she had been in my space, in my grief, without me seeing it. Maya's baby book was not on the shelf in the hall where I kept it. I found it in one of Lauren's tote bags shoved under the bed, half covered by a sweater. A framed photo of Maya at the beach, grinning with sand stuck to her face, had a crack running through the glass that I did not remember. The baby blanket that had been folded carefully at the foot of Maya's bed now had a deep red stain on one corner that looked suspiciously like wine. Kneeling on the floor with that blanket in my hands, my stomach twisted. It hit me that this had not just been about a single recording. Lauren had been chipping away at Maya's presence in my home piece by piece, moving and damaging things that mattered to me, trying to tuck my daughter into boxes and bags as if she was clutter. I had been so desperate to believe someone could understand me that I had let her. I finished packing everything, taping the boxes shut, and stacked them neatly just inside the door. Then I sat on the couch and stared at them, feeling something inside me harden. The next day, just before the time I told her, I got a notification from the Ring camera. I pulled up the feed. Lauren stood in the hallway with Tiffany and a woman I assumed was her mother, Brenda. The three of them frowned at the boxes lined up outside my door. Brenda saw the camera and actually flipped it off, middle finger raised like she was in high school. Tiffany tried the doorknob once, then pressed her face against the frosted glass. I had deadbolted from inside. Lauren just stood there staring straight into the camera. "Hope you are happy," she said, like she thought I could hear her. "Hope you die alone with your recordings." Then they loaded the boxes into Brenda's car and left. I allowed myself to hope that was the end of it. I should have known better. A few days later, I came home from work and immediately felt something was off. My apartment door was slightly open. Not broken, just ajar, the deadbolt undone. My heart sped up. I pushed it open slowly, calling out, "Hello." Silence. The living room looked the same. Couch, coffee table, television. The kitchen was in its usual state of almost clean. I moved through each room, my skin prickling, until I ended up in the hallway outside Maya's room. I have 3 boxes in the corner of that room where I keep her things. I cannot bring myself to turn it into anything else yet, so it stays as a soft, quiet shrine. Her small bed made with the faded cartoon sheets she loved, a bookshelf with her favorite picture books, and those 3 boxes of carefully packed memories. Clothes she wore, toys she adored, crayon drawings from school, birthday cards, tiny plastic jewelry from vending machines. One box was open when I walked in. The lid was propped up against the wall. I froze. When I looked inside, my stomach dropped. It was empty, completely cleaned out. The stuffed rabbit Maya had slept with every night since she was 2. Gone. The drawing she made in kindergarten of our family holding hands under purple skies. Gone. The birthday card she made me when she turned 6, with her handprints traced in crayon, and "To Daddy from your best girl," printed in uneven letters across the front. Gone. Every small, irreplaceable thing in that box had disappeared. For a moment, I actually swayed, my hand catching on the edge of the dresser to keep my balance. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. I called the police. When Officer Brian arrived, he walked through the condo with me, taking notes. I showed him the box, the marks on the door where the lock had clearly been turned from the inside. He listened, but I could see from his face that this was not going to be the kind of case with quick answers. We checked the building's security footage with David Jackson's help. The recording showed Tiffany following another resident into the building around lunchtime, slipping in behind them before the door fully closed. She rode the elevator up to my floor, knocked on my door, and then turned when Mrs. Holloway came out of her unit. My neighbor looked embarrassed when she watched the footage with us. Tiffany had told her she was my girlfriend, that we had a silly argument, and she had forgotten her keys, and could she please open the door before she got in trouble at work for being late from lunch. I had given Mrs. Holloway an emergency key after her husband died, just in case she ever needed help and could not get to her phone. She is a kind woman with a soft heart. She believed Tiffany. She opened my door and went back to her own apartment, thinking she was doing me a favor. Because there was no direct footage from inside my unit, and because my neighbor had technically let Tiffany in, the police officer was honest with me. Without a camera in here or a witness who saw her take the items, it is your word against hers, he said. We can file a report, and it will be on record. If there is further harassment, that helps build a case. But as far as proving a specific theft, he spread his hands in a gesture that said there were limits to what he could do. I nodded, though my jaw was clenched so tight my teeth hurt. File the report, I said. I want it on record. I tried calling Lauren. She did not answer. I tried Tiffany. Straight to voicemail. So I texted Tiffany. Return my daughter's things, or I am filing theft charges, I wrote. A few minutes later, she responded, Do not know what you are talking about. I stared at the words, anger rising like a fire. Security footage shows you entering my building. I replied. My neighbor let you in. An entire box of my daughter's belongings is missing. You think I will just let that go? She answered, You have footage of me entering the building, not of me taking anything. Good luck with that. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. The next day, a friend of mine from work, Tanisha, texted me screenshots from social media. You see this? She asked. I opened the images and felt my stomach clench. Lauren had posted a long message on her page, a neatly crafted story about how she had tried to help her boyfriend heal from losing his daughter, how he was emotionally abusive and weaponized his grief whenever she asked him to seek therapy or move forward. She wrote that when she gently encouraged him to stop obsessing over a recording, he threw her out in the middle of the night with nowhere to go. The comments were mixed. People who knew me, even a little, were skeptical. Strangers and her friends were full of sympathy for her. Brenda had posted too. My daughter gave a year to a man who could not move past his trauma, she wrote. She tried so hard to help him heal, and he repaid her by throwing her out and now harassing her. Some people cannot be helped. Reading it, something in me snapped. For over a year, I had swallowed my grief in public spaces, trying not to make other people uncomfortable. I had let Lauren critique the way I mourned my own child. I had accepted her narrative about what was healthy and normal. Suddenly, I was done. I went to both posts and commented from my own account, something I never do. On Lauren's post, I wrote, You were right about one thing. I could not move past losing my daughter. It is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. But here's what you're not saying. You deleted the only recording I had of her voice on purpose. You told me to my face that I needed to move on. You lived rent-free in my apartment for 4 months while criticizing me for keeping photos of her. And yesterday, someone you know entered my home under false pretenses and stole a box of her belongings. Security footage shows your best friend entering my building. So yes, I threw you out, and I would do it again. I attached screenshots of our texts, including the one where she admitted to deleting the recording and called Maya a dead kid. I attached the image from the building camera of Tiffany slipping into the lobby behind another resident. I tagged Tiffany directly and wrote, Return my daughter's things within 24 hours or I am pressing charges. Then I hit post and put my phone down on the table, my heart hammering in my chest. For a second, I wondered if I'd gone too far. Then I thought about the empty box in Maya's room and the feel of that rabbit missing from its usual spot, and the doubt vanished. The reaction was immediate. Comments started rolling in faster than I could read them. People who had swallowed Lauren's story without question suddenly turned on her. "You deleted his dead child's recording?" One person wrote. "What is wrong with you?" Another said, "You stole his kids' things? That is abuse." A few of her friends tried to defend her, saying there were two sides to every story, but the screenshots were right there. Brenda deleted her post within an hour. Lauren set her profile to private. I watched the digital spin-out happening on my screen and felt something like justice, small and imperfect, but real. Late that night, while I was in the kitchen rinsing dishes, my Ring camera notification went off again. "Motion detected at your front door." I dried my hands and opened the app. The feed showed Tiffany, standing there holding a cardboard box. She glanced nervously up and down the hall, then set the box down, knocked once, and practically ran for the elevator. I waited a few minutes before opening the door, just to be sure she was gone. The box sat there like some strange offering. I carried it inside and set it on the dining table. Inside were Maya's things. The stuffed rabbit, now reeking of cigarette smoke. The drawings, though one had a long tear down the middle where it had clearly been ripped and then hastily taped. The birthday card with the crayon handprints, slightly bent but still intact. I lifted each item out carefully, my hands shaking. It was like someone had reached into my chest, stolen pieces of my heart, and then tossed them back to me half damaged. My phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. "You got your stuff," it read. "Leave us alone, or we are getting a restraining order against you." My reply was simple. "You broke into my home and stole from me. Contact me again, and I am filing charges. Try me." I blocked the number. A few minutes later, Brenda called from her own phone. I let go to voicemail. When I listened later, her voice was sharp, full of fury. "You are a monster," she said. "You put my daughter on blast online about something private and made her look terrible to everyone. All because you cannot let go of your grief." I deleted it halfway through. I had heard enough. The next morning, I called the non-emergency police line and asked about filing for a restraining order. At the station, the officer listened as I laid everything out. The deletion of the recording, the attempted break-in, the scratches on the lock, the trespass via my neighbor's spare key, the theft of the box, the return of the items after I threatened charges online, the texts and social media posts. I handed over printed screenshots, copies of the security footage stills, the police report from the earlier break-in call. The officer nodded and said, "Given all this, you have a good case for a protective order. It may take a few weeks for a hearing date, but in the meantime we can file for a temporary order." I signed the paperwork with a hand that trembled slightly but felt steady inside. When I got home, the first thing I did was talk to Mrs. Holloway. She opened the door before I even knocked fully, eyes full of apology. "Cameron, baby, I am so sorry," she said immediately. "If I had known," I held up a hand. "It is not your fault," I said. "She lied to you." I would have believed her too. She covered her mouth with her hand for a second, then said, "I will never let anybody in here again unless you call me yourself." I had already arranged for a smart lock to be installed on her door, one with a code only she and I would know, in case she needed me in an emergency. "We will both be more careful," I told her. "But you did nothing wrong." The days leading up to the hearing were oddly quiet. Lauren did not contact me directly. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she had hired a lawyer, one of those general practice types whose website screamed affordable instead of experienced. Her mother fumed online, but kept my name out of it now, probably on the advice of that same lawyer. Adriana called after hearing a watered-down version of the story from a cousin. "Do I need to fly down from Atlanta?" she asked, her voice tight with anger. I pictured her showing up in court on my side, ready to tear Lauren apart verbally, and almost said yes. But I also knew Adriana had her own life and her own grief to carry. "I will be all right," I told her. "I promise." The day of the hearing, I sat in a hard plastic chair outside the courtroom in a collared shirt and slacks, my hands clasped together between my knees. The courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and cleaning supplies. My legs bounced despite my attempt to keep them still. When the bailiff finally opened the door and called our case, my heart knocked once hard against my ribs. Inside, the room was smaller than I expected. There was a judge's bench, 2 tables, a few rows of wooden benches. Judge Williams, a black woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a very straight posture, looked down at the file in front of her as we took our places. Lauren sat across from me at the other table with her lawyer and Brenda beside her. She wore a neat blouse and slacks, her braids pulled back, makeup even more carefully applied than usual. Her eyes were red, either from real tears or carefully placed eye drops. I did not look at her for more than a second. I did not want to see whatever version of hurt she had put on for the court. The bailiff, a tall man named Harris, had us all swear to tell the truth. Then Judge Williams began. She reviewed the police report, the screenshots, the security footage stills. Her expression did not give much away, but she frowned more than once. Lauren's lawyer started. He spoke in a smooth tone, clearly hoping to sound reasonable. He said I was harassing his client by posting private conversations publicly. He said the break-in was a misunderstanding, that Tiffany had merely been retrieving belongings that Lauren had forgotten. Judge Williams raised an eyebrow. What belongings? She asked. Your client moved out with everything days earlier, correct? The lawyer hesitated, then said she realized afterward that there were still personal items in the apartment, so she asked her friend to help her. The judge said, and instead of arranging a pickup with Mr. Hayes, she had someone misrepresent themselves to a neighbor to gain access to his home. The lawyer blustered. It was not breaking in. The neighbor opened the door voluntarily. Judge Williams replied, the neighbor opened the door under false pretenses. She believed your client had permission to enter. That is trespassing. There was a brief silence. He cleared his throat and changed tactics. Your Honor, my client endured emotional abuse for over a year. She was trying to help Mr. Hayes grieve properly. He weaponized his loss whenever she tried to set healthy boundaries. I cannot help it. A short, incredulous laugh escaped me before I could swallow it. Judge Williams turned her gaze to me. Something funny, Mr. Hayes? She asked. I shook my head, still half laughing, half on the verge of yelling. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I said. It is just calling it helping me grieve when she deleted the only recording of my daughter's voice and had her friend take my daughter's belongings is a stretch. The judge looked back at Lauren's lawyer. Did your client delete this recording? She asked. He glanced at Lauren. She did, he said, but she was trying to help him move forward. He was obsessing. Judge Williams cut him off gently. I would like to hear from Ms. Pierce directly, she said. Lauren shifted in her seat and spoke for the first time. Yes, I deleted it, she said, but he listened to it constantly. It was unhealthy. He was using it to wallow in grief. I was trying to help him move on. The judge asked, and did you or did you not tell him he needed to move on? I did, Lauren said quickly. He was obsessed. It has been 2 years. He would not stop talking about that recording, about his daughter. I was trying to help him have a future by destroying something irreplaceable to him, Judge Williams said. Her tone was not angry, just flat. And the items taken from his apartment? The box of his daughter's belongings. The lawyer interjected again. Those were returned, Your Honor. All of them. He has them back now. I said. They were returned after I posted security footage stills and threatened theft charges. The stuffed rabbit smelled like smoke. One of the drawings was ripped. They were not returned out of remorse. They were returned because they got caught. The judge flipped through the papers in front of her again, her eyes moving quickly over the printed texts. Lauren calling Maya a dead kid. Lauren demanding to be let back into my home. Tiffany's taunting message about proving the theft. Finally, Judge Williams looked up, her gaze level. Ms. Pierce, she said, I have reviewed the evidence. You lived rent-free in Mr. Hayes' apartment. You destroyed his property. You arranged for someone to trespass and remove painfully personal items from his home. You then participated in an online campaign to paint him as an abuser when he ended the relationship. These are not the actions of someone simply trying to help. She turned slightly toward me. Mr. Hayes, she said, I am granting your request. The temporary restraining order is now a full protective order. 1 year, no contact. Ms. Pierce, you are to stay at least 500 feet away from him, his home, and his workplace. Any violation will be taken seriously. Brenda shot to her feet, anger blazing in her eyes. This is insane, she shouted. She did not do anything wrong. She was trying to help a broken man. Bailiff Harris moved toward her, and she sat down abruptly, still fuming. Lauren started crying. Hi, breathy sobs that sounded more angry than hurt. "This is not fair," she said, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I gave him a year. I tried so hard, and he is punishing me for caring." Judge Williams said calmly, "You are not being punished for caring. You are being held accountable for your actions. There is a difference." Order granted. She banged her gavel once. The sound echoed in the small room. It felt like a door closing in the best possible way. Outside the courthouse, the air felt hotter than it had inside. I loosened my collar and walked toward the parking lot. I heard footsteps behind me and turned just in time to see Bailiff Harris step between me and Brenda. She glared around him. "You are going to regret this," she shouted from a safe distance. "She was the best thing that ever happened to you." I did not answer. There was nothing to say. I unlocked my car, slid into the driver's seat, and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel for a long moment before starting the engine and driving away. That was a week ago. Since then, nothing. Lauren has followed the order so far. No texts, no calls, no surprise appearances at my door. A couple of mutual acquaintances reached out after the hearing, some to apologize for believing her too quickly, others to ask if there was anything they could do. We did not know how bad it was, one coworker said over the phone. I appreciated the sentiment, but I was not interested in keeping those connections. If they could look at Lauren's first post and immediately assume I was a villain, they did not really know me. Life, strangely, has begun to feel lighter. Not fixed, not magically healed, but quieter in a way that feels good instead of suffocating. My condo feels like mine again. No one is telling me which photos are too much. No one is sighing when I mention Maya's name. The boxes in her room are back in their place. The rabbit sits on my bookshelf in the living room now, cleaned professionally 3 times until the smell of smoke is mostly gone. A small art restoration studio in town is repairing the torn drawing for me. The woman who runs it, Ms. Clark, promised she could make the rip almost invisible. It will cost $200, but it feels like a small price to pay to mend something my daughter touched. Yesterday afternoon, Mrs. Holloway knocked on my door with a tin of cookies in her hands. "I baked too many," she said with a smile that was both shy and hopeful. "Help an old woman out." I laughed and let her in. We sat at my kitchen table, the tin open between us. The cookies were slightly lopsided and absolutely perfect. She apologized again for letting Tiffany into my apartment. I told her again that she had no reason to feel guilty. After a while, she glanced toward the hallway where Maya's photos hung and said, very gently, "I have wanted to ask about her for a long time, but I did not want to cause you pain." I looked at the closest frame, a picture of Maya in a yellow dress, arms thrown wide, her mouth open mid-laugh, and felt something loosen in my chest. "I love talking about her," I said. "She is not a secret. She is not just a wound. She is my daughter." So I told Mrs. Holloway stories. About the time Maya tried to make me breakfast in bed and nearly set the kitchen towel on fire. About her obsession with the ducks at Freedom Park, how she named every single one and insisted she could tell them apart. About the way she would curl up on the couch with her rabbit tucked under her chin and hum herself to sleep. Mrs. Holloway listened with tears in her eyes and a small, warm smile on her face. That night, after she left, I sat at my desk and backed up Maya's voice recording again, even though I already had multiple copies. I sent it to myself by email. I uploaded it to 2 cloud services. I transferred it onto a USB drive and put that drive in a small fireproof safe I keep in my closet. The next day, I went to my bank and rented a safe deposit box. I put another copy of the recording on a second USB drive and left it there, nestled among other people's important papers and jewelry. It felt a little excessive, but I did not care. Nobody is ever going to erase that voice again. Standing in line at the bank, I caught my reflection in the polished metal of a column. I looked tired but clear somehow. Dr. Owens would probably say I looked more present. I thought about Lauren's words, about how she said I was stuck in grief, how she made my love for my child sound like a problem to be solved. I realized that what had been suffocating me was not my grief itself. It was the constant pressure to grieve in a way that made other people comfortable. I am not dating. I do not plan it for a while, maybe ever. Not because I'm stuck the way Lauren said, not because I am incapable of moving forward, but because I'm fine alone. I have work. I have family and a few close friends who never doubted me. I have my sessions with Dr. Owens where I can talk about Maya without anyone trying to fix it. I have the park she loved, the pond where we fed ducks on sunny afternoons. I have her books and her drawings and that rabbit on my shelf. And now I have 38 seconds of her voice, saved so many different ways it would take a disaster to lose them all. Last week was the anniversary of her diagnosis. I took the day off from work. I did not tell anyone why. Not because I was ashamed, but because I wanted the day to be ours. I drove to Freedom Park, just outside of Uptown, where I had taken her countless times when she was small. The weather was bright and clear, the kind of day she would have loved. Kids ran around the playground, their laughter carrying across the water. I sat on a bench by the pond with a small bag of birdseed in my pocket and watched the ducks glide across the surface, little wakes trailing behind them. After a while, I pulled out my phone and my headphones. I hesitated for a second, then pressed play. "Good night, Daddy. I love you. I miss you. Sleep tight. Do not let the bedbugs bite." Her voice filled my ears, soft and clear and endlessly precious. That laugh bubbled out at the end, exactly the way it always had. Tears rolled down my face, but I was smiling. Some guy jogging past glanced over, saw me sitting there with headphones on, tears streaming, and probably thought I was falling apart over a breakup or some sad song. I did not care. Let him think whatever he wanted. He had no idea how lucky I was in that moment. Someone in a support group once asked me if I felt bad about how things ended with Lauren, if I thought I had been too harsh. I remember staring at the question on my screen for a long time, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Now, after everything, my answer is still no. She tried to erase my daughter. She looked at my grief and decided it was inconvenient, that it took up too much space in her idea of a healthy relationship. She stole irreplaceable things out of spite. She could have left like an adult at any point. She could have said, "This is not working for me," packed her bags, and walked away. Instead, she tried to destroy the last pieces of my child that I could touch or hear. You do not forgive that. You do not feel guilty about consequences for that. Her family may always think I am the villain, that I am punishing her for trying to help. They can rewrite the story in their heads as many times as they want. It does not change what happened in my home, in my daughter's room on my phone. Maya existed. She was here. She was real and loud and funny and perfect and loved. Nobody gets to erase that. Not for their comfort. Not for any reason. The order expires in a year. Maybe when that date comes, Lauren will send me some long message about how she has changed, about how she wants closure. Maybe she will stay far away, embarrassed enough by what came out in court and online to never try again. If she does reach out, I will deal with it then, with the clarity I have now that I did not have before. For now, she is gone from my life, and that is enough. Tonight, my apartment is quiet in a way that feels right. The late summer sun slants through the windows, turning the dust motes in the air into tiny floating sparks. The photos of Maya on the wall catch the light. Her in her first day of school outfit, her holding a melting ice cream cone, her wrapped in a towel after a swim. "The restored drawing will be ready next week," Miss Clark said. "I already cleared a space for it on the wall above my desk, where I will see it every morning when I sit down to work." I sit on a couch, the rabbit propped up on the shelf across from me like it is keeping watch. My phone rests on the coffee table. For a moment, I just look around my living room, really look and feel that strange mix of ache and gratitude settle in my chest. Then I reach for the phone and tap the file one more time. "Good night, Daddy. I love you. I miss you. Sleep tight. Do not let the bedbugs bite." The laugh comes, that perfect laugh, bright as ever. I close my eyes and let it wash over me. I have my daughter's voice. I have her stories, her things, her mark on every corner of my life. Nobody can take that from me again. That is all I need. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.